Coming. Okay. All right, everybody, welcome to Real Crusades History. We are back doing another live stream here on the actual Real Crusades History channel. So our 3-month ban is over, and we're back at it. So this is going to be a fun one. So Scott's with me co-hosting. Scott, Amos, what is up, my friend?
Hello, Stephen. Good to see you.
All right, you too. And we're very happy to welcome a very special guest. Eric is with us. And Eric, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Eric, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you, Eric. Eric is with us because he recently returned from an epic crusade to the Holy Land himself, actually, and got to experience a lot of historical sites related to the Crusades. So Eric's going to share some of his trip with us. We're going to talk about what he saw, what he felt, and it's going to be pretty great. Somebody just asked if there's no super chat. I have not set that up yet. No, I'm planning on it though. Okay. Okay. So real quick, I just want to ask everybody listening, do we need to adjust any levels? How are the three of us in terms of our balance? So Scott, you want to test your mic real quick?
Hello.
Okay. And Eric, you want to say something?
Hello.
Okay. What do you think, guys? Are we good?
Both of you all sound fine to me. How about me? Am I coming across too loud or anything?
I don't think so, but I'm just going to throw that out there so that if anybody in the chat wants to let us know, this nifty new feature with Google Hangouts, we can adjust the various levels. So if somebody's out of balance, just let us know in the chat and we'll kind of tweak things around a bit. But anyway, so let's get into this. So Eric, so you have been somebody who's been hanging out on the Real Crusades history community for a while and sharing your love of Crusades history. So you've been interested in the Crusades for quite a while, haven't you?
Oh yeah, it's been pretty much ever since I can remember. But I have to say, this channel has really helped me get a better grasp on the actual historical reality of the Crusades. So.
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad to hear that we could be helping.
Really.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, what is it about the Crusades that has always interested you? Just before we get into your trip, I kind of want to get a little bit of your personal perspective here.
Yeah. I suppose it's just an interesting time period to me because from what I understand, it's just it's Latin Europeans coming to the Holy Land and reclaiming it. And I can't think of any other time in history when, maybe other people can, think of something else, but to me, it just sticks out in my mind. Yeah, it's just compelling. It's just kind of a bizarre phenomenon that'll never be repeated. You know what I mean? And
I think what's interesting about it too is the way it was this pan-European project.
Yes,
you've got people from every end of Latin Christendom who are participating in this thing, and it goes on for such a long time, and it does create an interesting circumstance of this encounter between Islamic civilization and Latin Christian civilization, and it's there's a picturesque quality to it, I guess. The encounter between, like, say, somebody like Saladin and Richard the Lionheart, who in normal circumstances would have never been anywhere near each other. And yet there's this really powerful drama between their two sides. And there's a lot of that in the Crusades. The Crusades is full of good stories, I guess. So yeah. All right, Eric. So you just headed out to the Holy Land. And so what kind of prompted you to take this trip to what is now Israel?
Well, it was actually, was always number one on my list. Obviously the Crusades was a huge deal, but it's just right now, there's just so much going on, just current event wise, like there's a war going on in Syria, there's it's a lot of tension, and I witnessed that firsthand in Jerusalem. It was insane. It was actually really amazing, and just eye-opening, and
Can you expand on that a little bit? Like, I'm actually interested to hear, like, what kind of tensions did you experience?
Well, I went up on the Temple Mount. Actually, I was in Jerusalem. It'll be a week ago tomorrow because it was on Thursday last week. So, and I just was with some people, and we were walking near these Israeli guards, and all of a sudden, the Jews want to go up there and pray, and they just, it's just people get really angry, and there was like the Palestinian Authority was like yelling at the Jews, and it was just kind of a bizarre experience. Just you can see how it's contested, and it was just interesting to me.
What's the situation with Jews and Christians there, Eric? Are they not allowed up? I mean, the Muslims not allowed? Are they hostile to them, or?
No, I mean they were welcoming on the Temple Mount, but it was a weird experience because we had this tour guide, and he was talking about the Temple Mount, and he was like, historically this is the area where we think like the Jews had the first and second temples,
Right.
And this Palestinian Authority guy, he dressed up in like a police officer uniform, like walked up, and he was like, no, this is Al-Aqsa Mosque, this is not this is not the Temple Mount. And our guide was like, he just gave him this really weird look and was like, well, historically it's the Temple Mount. And
I would say, no, this is the Templars headquarters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, apparently the Crusades haven't ended.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. A lot of those questions that were going on during the Crusades are still relevant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
right there in that on that same location. I mean, the Crusaders turned that whole area into their complex. I mean, all of Jerusalem they took control of and wouldn't allow. That was actually the one area in the Kingdom of Jerusalem they would not allow non-Christians to come into. And so the Dome of the Rock was used as there was a church there. Parts of it were used as palaces, and of course, the Temple Mount had the headquarters for the Templars there, like in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So yeah, it is interesting, and I do kind of think it's kind of funny how the issue at the Temple Mount is between the Jews and the Muslims, whereas I think, well, we kind of have something to say about that too, but from the Christian side, except it's not really, that doesn't really come up. I mean, I guess a lot of Christians probably just don't care nowadays, but if you kind of have a historical bent to think about it that way, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, what were some specifically Crusader? I mean, this is kind of gonna hopefully be something we can talk about quite a bit, but talk to us about some of the Crusader sites that you saw.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't really. I told you I was going to go to Acre, and that we just didn't get a chance to. So I was kind of bummed about that. But I did actually see a Crusade castle, a Crusade era castle, obviously, that they had kind of excavated. The Israeli Antiquity Authority had actually excavated, and it was just right on the coastline. It was at Caesarea is where it was, and
okay, so it was like the citadel of Caesarea or something.
I suppose that's what it would be. Yeah, I mean, it was, you could see the slanted walls and the towers that were somewhat intact. I mean, comparative to, I mean, like just maybe 200 yards away is a Roman amphitheater. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing. Yeah, like I mean.
Caesarea was a major Roman city, and then also, of course, it was one of the central cities in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and so
yeah. And it's hard to get your mind around, like, how it would have looked back then.
I think probably some of the stuff at Caesarea there might be some Ottoman stuff there. I'm not positive about that. So like, I know there was a lot of stuff that kind of was blown off by the Muslims after they got the Crusaders out of there. I'm not sure if Caesarea was included in that or not.
Destroyed, Stephen?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that, for example, Baybar is just kind of demolished.
Yeah, that's what.
All
these fortresses and castles were just leveled.
Like Antioch, for example, Antioch was pretty much no longer existent as a city after it was destroyed by Baybars. And I mean, I think there's like a village there for, that kind of persisted. But
that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, like it seems like most of like the fortifications that the Crusaders had actually built were pretty much leveled by the Mamluks, correct?
a lot of it was, I mean, some of it was still used by the Mamluks. Like I know there's stuff at Accra you can still see that
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
original to the Crusaders. But I think a lot of the stuff at Jerusalem is Ottoman. Like
Yeah, all the walls around Jerusalem are Ottoman for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you saw the fortress at Caesarea, and actually I've heard that there's I've seen some photos of out in the countryside. You can actually see some of the original castles, almost like Kerak, but then there's some other smaller ones too, kind of toward the Jordan area, kind of out in the desert area.
Oh, Kerak is still in existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I think the Jordanian government does a good job maintaining Kerak, but I was so close to Kerak. I was in this town called En-Bokek, and it was like right on the other side of the Dead Sea. And I mean,
which one was that again?
Pardon?
You said the name. I didn't catch that.
Oh, I was at this town called En-Bokek.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's literally just exactly on the other side from Kerak on the Dead Sea, and I mean, the sunrises every morning were just gorgeous. So I sent a photo to Dr. Paul Crawford, and I was like, this is what the sunrises would have looked like for Renal de Chatillon, and he just loved that. So
okay, I see.
Yeah.
So did you actually see so did you get to go into Kerak? Or?
No, I didn't go to Jordan at all, but unfortunately, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's located there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking at a map right now?
Yeah, I'm pulling some stuff up right now.
I'm looking at the Atlas of the Crusades and just found it. Okay, in Crusader times.
So tell me about
1197-12. Go ahead.
So what did you kind of feel like this trip meant for you, Eric? I mean, you kind of talked to me about this a little bit on Facebook, like some of the feelings it evoked in you. How did it all make you feel?
I mean, it was an emotional trip. I mean, and I knew that going into it. I mean, this was not obviously a relaxing trip. This was let's go tour the sites, but it was, I just, overall, I mean, there was moments where I felt like I could cry because it was just, I mean, but like tears of joy. It was just spectacular. It changed my life, for the better. And, yeah, it was so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually can relate to that a bit because when I went to Turkey and I went to Istanbul and I went to the Hagia Sophia, and yeah, I remember when I walked into the Hagia Sophia. I mean, it was overwhelming. It's this really powerful feeling came over me. I mean, I've spent years of my life reading about this massive medieval church where all these, and that one thing that struck me was the sheer number of Byzantine emperors who had been in this place, where, I mean, centuries and centuries of Byzantine emperors. And it's almost kind of weird now that this is it's a tourist site now. Like it's
right.
That's actually kind of the bittersweet thing about actually going to these places is when the people hawking goods outside and the atmosphere of tourism at a place that is kind of this sort of the center of this really powerful history. I mean, history that for me is very meaningful, and it just almost seems kind of wrong that the Byzantine capital church should be kind of a tourist site. I don't know, but
no,
I think it's been that way for probably 1,500 years now. That's the thing. I mean,
well, that's true. Yeah,
we're looking at something that's just been ongoing here for since it was built. I mean, the center of the city, the center of everything going on around it, and so maybe it's not unauthentic after all. These. At this time.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. But And I'm really glad that, for example, Hagia Sophia it's preserved as a museum. Like, it's not a mosque.
Yeah.
They're not like insisting on sort of maintaining the Ottoman tradition of using it as a mosque. But so yeah, Eric, you got to see the site of the Battle of Al Ful, right?
I did.
So what was that like?
That was amazing. Obviously, I mean, I feel bad because you're probably thinking it's going to be some like epic thing, but it's just see the location was just incredible unto itself. Just because today there's like a kangaroo park there. You know what I mean? It's like some Australian kangaroo park, but it's like this is where it actually happened, and it's just at the foot of Mount Gilboa, and it's like I said, everything's blooming there. It was absolutely gorgeous, but just life goes on, and it's modern day, and I don't know how to. It's just a bizarre reality that like this is where it happened, but that battle was. I mean, I think it was rather insignificant, was it? It wasn't really a.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the ongoing sort of clash between Saladin and the Kingdom of Jerusalem in the early 1180s. It's kind of interesting because it was. There are some people who think that battle sort of prompted Guy to be more bellicose in 1187 at Hattin. Basically, what happened is actually Guy's strategy was pretty solid. I think, like basically what he did, he just basically acted as a barrier, and for Saladin's army, and prevented Saladin from effecting a invasion of the kingdom. And so Saladin had to withdraw. So it's kind of, which engagements like that kind of happened several times in that period. But he did draw some criticism apparently for that, especially like from, Gerard of Ridderford, the crazy Grand Master of the Templars, who was.
Well, yeah, it's like that he wasn't. I mean, it just seemed like that was just kind of sound military, field work tactics, and he, it seemed like Guy was kind of unfairly crucified for it.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, like in fact, if
he didn't show enough, knightly bravado or whatever. I mean, it was just crazy.
There was I guess, okay, so what happened was, well, for one thing, one of the issues was every time Saladin did one of these invasions, he did destroy a lot of crops and villages and stuff. So he'd come in, he'd wreck a bunch of stuff, and that put a strain on the economy in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. But, if you've got an army in the field that's intact, he can't take any territory. He can't, really invade the kingdom. But this happens over and over again, actually, through this period. Like, Belvoir Castle, there was a thing kind of like this at Beirut. Saladin kind of attempted to besiege Beirut, and Baldwin IV moved an army up, and basically, once again, acted as a deterrent for him to continue that campaign. But so there was kind of this issue of, I think what happened at Al Ful too was that some people thought there was a good opportunity to actually do some serious damage to Saladin's army, and Guy just maintained a very, tight defensive sort of posture. And so, I don't know, like if he had done the same thing in 1187, I mean, history would have been pretty different.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of like, I don't know. So it just seems like art. But anyway, we're getting off into a different issue here.
Well, I mean, I thought it'd be good to sort of discuss some of the history surrounding some of these different sites that Eric was able to see. So yeah. But I just thought that was kind of cool because I like a lot of the more obscure battles that don't get talked about as much. But
so I figured you'd like that.
Yeah, and so you saw the Horns of Hattin too, I guess, right?
That for me was actually really moving. It was really cool because, like, so actually, I have to say, from your side, I mean, I'd never even heard of that battle up until a couple of years ago, and I remember I watched your video. It was like the three primary sources on Hatin, right? And you do a couple Muslim sources, and I think there's one Christian source, right?
Yeah.
And that really sparked my interest, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting what happened here. And I had kind of like built this like picture in my mind. I used Google Maps, and I'd looked at like where it probably was, and I thought it was going to be like really really far away from the Galilee, but literally you can walk across a field and you can see the Sea of Galilee, Lake Tiberias. It's right there. Like
Yeah.
it's so close. Yeah.
So you can see the whole picture. Is there a vantage point where you can really see everything that or the locations of everything?
Yeah, I mean, there's like two towns that are kind of in between the Horns of Hatin, and then there's
And you
also
can
this.
see the horns distinctly. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they're
The
kind
two
of.
mountains or two hills.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to know what to look for because they're not really like they don't stand out super well. You know what?
Right. From the pictures I've seen, yeah, they're just low hills.
Exactly. Yeah, they're
Just
really
a
low.
pair of low hills.
Hmm.
They don't necessarily look like horns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of the misleading thing there because it's really not. It's just a small. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you look at it, you're like, oh, that's definitely the Horns of Hatin when you know what you're looking for. But it's low enough where just a normal person. I mean, I went up there and I was talking with some IDF soldiers that were doing some surveying. They were looking at the Sea of Galilee, and I asked one of them, and only two of them out of like the five guys only knew what the Horns of Hatin were. You know what I mean? So
Really?
most people, yeah, like most
Kind
people
of a forgotten. Okay.
yeah.
I'm
So
just looking for a map of that here.
mhm.
And so you had a guide with you at that point, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you
Yep.
said? So who was your guide? Was he an Israeli? Was he?
He's actually he's Israeli, but he's originally from New Zealand. His name is Aaron, and you'd love him. He's such a great guy. He's so interesting, and
So was he Jewish or Christian or?
He was Jewish, yeah, but actually, well, Messianic Jew. So apparently, he believes in Jesus. So I kind of thought that was interesting. So yeah.
So did you guys kind of talk about the Battle of Hattin at all? I thought I remember you said something to me in an email about that. But
yeah. I had asked him to specifically point out where the Horns of Hatin were, because when I was first driving from Nazareth to Tiberias, it was like, like I was saying, everything's so close in proximity. If you blink and you miss it, like you can see the horns from the highway. It's right there, and I didn't expect that at all.
It's just such a tiny country, yeah.
It really is, yeah. So, so he pointed them out to me, and the next day I actually hiked Mount Arabel, which is just right on the other side from the Sea of Galilee, closer to the Sea of Galilee, kind of in between the Horns and the Sea of Galilee. And it was just amazing to come over the hill and to actually see the Horns of Hatin, and it was just like, wow,
Yeah.
And just to think just how much carnage there was right there, and to be in the presence of it, it was just that was really moving to me. So
yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, Hattin's one of those definitive battles that really stands out in history. But so yeah, you got to actually see the side of Hattin. So like, what was the terrain like? Is it pretty? Did you kind of get a sense of? Let's see, you were there at a very different time of the year, though.
Exactly, that's the key, because when the Crusaders were there, it was July 4th, 1187, and so that means it's hot. Exactly, it's the peak of summer, so it would have been really dry and coarse and arid. And I was just there, last week, so it's lush, it's green, and I mean, did you see the picture I sent you? I mean, there was like poppies everywhere, and it was just gorgeous, just like Mount Gilboa, just like the whole northern area, that Galilee region, is just so gorgeous. It's so different from the Negev, which is down in the south.
Okay, right, yeah, the more arid region. I guess.
Yeah. So the Galilee is just super lush, and it was kind of a gradual downhill towards the battlefield of Hattin, and it's just kind of, it's weird because it was kind of disorienting at first because it looks closer than it actually is, but it's really further away. There's two kind of Jewish settlements in between, and it looks like you could walk the distance, but it's really actually quite far away. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So did you think like someday I'm gonna go to Hattin and kind of like think about some of this myself, but
Yeah.
did it kind of affect the way you think about the strategy that Guy of Lusignan and Gerard of Ridderford were employing? I mean, did you think did you like ask yourself, God, why would they choose this location to move this huge army?
It's actually really funny you say that because it is interesting. It crossed my mind. They moved past a town called Tehran, correct? I believe they did when they were walking from the Springs of Safari, and because they mass there, and then they get ambushed essentially, right? Like at Hattin, and
Right.
it's, yeah. I mean, like on either side, there's like the Valley of Doves, and it's just like this super steep, jagged canyon, and it's like, well, why would you want to, cross this way? It's just so
Yeah.
steep, It's kind of, it's really rocky terrain. It's really, there's a lot of cliffs, and then on the top of the cliffs, it's just really like beautiful rolling hills. So,
it's like, why would they move an army? I mean, everybody else in the army did not. What's amazing about the way politics worked in this period of time is everybody, like all the other important people in the army, didn't want to do this, and yet because the king,
he
said they were going to do it, they did it. They went along with their. I mean, the incredible cohesion of. People talk about the feudal system like it's kind of chaotic, but there really was a lot of stability there in terms of the way the loyalty systems. I mean, there could be chaos too, but it's just absolutely amazing that in that case, it worked against them. I mean, it's too bad everybody didn't say, God, screw this. We're not going to, follow you on this fool's errand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty interesting. So, could you kind of see like the way that Saladin was able to ambush them at that point?
Yeah, definitely. Because like I was saying, there's so many like really steep cliffs and just like rocks and big boulders, especially when you get closer to the cliff edges. Obviously, there's just like so many places that you could hide out. There's caves everywhere in the cliffside. I mean, it'd be so easy for the Saladin soldiers just to go hide in the caves for an hour or so and just kind of wait. I mean, yeah, it totally makes sense why they ambushed him where they did. And
yeah,
I was actually watching there's a lecture on YouTube of this guy. He's an archaeologist at Haifa, University of Haifa, and you'd actually find him really interesting. I think
I've seen it actually.
Is Raphael Lewis? Have you seen that?
I think so. What's he say?
He talks about how when the Crusaders were marching from Acre and Jerusalem, and they massed at Safri, and then they marched to Tiberias. They were actually walking along this like farming road that was just kind of, it's been there. And the thing that struck me, and I just thought was so interesting, is as you're driving past Hattin, you can see it from the highway. There's still these like stone heaps in the fields next to you, and you're just like, oh, maybe some farmer just was like picking rocks and was just just threw it to the side. But those were actually like left over from that long ago. Like that was an 800-year-old like stone fence that was just been there, and they were there during the time of the Crusades, and they're still there. And he makes that point in the video, and I just think that's so interesting. Yeah,
that is really interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think it was let's see, Raymond of Tripoli advised that they stay closer to Acre, and that probably would have made a lot more sense. So I think the idea was it wasn't Acre. I don't remember exactly what the town was, but closer to that region. And the idea was that anywhere Saladin would move, they would be able to intercept him or threaten him. So anyway, so did you see Montgissard?
That is an interesting one because I'm not sure where that is. Like, does anyone know?
Well, it'd be quite a bit further south than Hattin. Like,
So obviously I didn't see it. Or maybe if I did, I just didn't realize it was there. But
it's closer to Ramla. So
that's what I've heard. And I didn't get that close to
That far.
Ramla. So yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then let's see. So I thought it was interesting. You were talking about where you saw Arsuf.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
That was interesting. That was, you literally fly into Ben Gurion Airport and you just type in Arsuf because it's still a thing today. I mean, it's kind of more of a neighborhood. It's not really like I live in the town of Arsuf. It's just kind of a location, and you can type it in on Google Maps and it'll pop up, and it's just a little north of Tel Aviv, and I mean, it was just wild. Like just driving on the road and you just drive past it, and like I was saying, there's a McDonald's there. You know what I mean? It's just so
That is
like, yeah. So it's
I think Richard's army could have used that McDonald's when they were
the mixed stop. Yeah.
Well, it must be amazing to just drive along and see these names on road signs, and I mean,
Are there any ruins at Arsuf? Because there was like a castle and town there and stuff. I mean,
yeah, I think they call it like Apollonia Arsuf. It was just a citadel.
Okay.
But that's in complete ruins. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Interesting. So, any other spots that kind of stick out in your mind that you got to see?
Well, I mean, I went up to Nimrod's fortress, which was a Muslim castle that Saladin's son actually built. It was Saladin's second son, Al-Aziz Uthman, I think.
Yeah.
And that's still perfectly intact. It's just like a national park. It's like Nimrod National Park or whatever. And that was pretty cool because, I mean, it's a beautiful, Muslim, medieval castle that's just still perfectly intact. It's a little bit deteriorating here and there, obviously, but I thought it was interesting. You can actually see the seal of Baybars on one of the castle walls. It's just still there, and apparently it's like a lion or something. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a giant lion. Yeah.
Okay, then yeah, I didn't know that, but people were like, "Oh yeah, that's Baybar's seal." So yeah, I thought that was cool. And then you can also hear the war in Syria, which is crazy because you're only like 25 miles from Damascus. So
now that's interesting. So you can hear like fighting going on in Syria.
Oh yeah,
wow.
Definitely. Yep.
So I guess getting any further north was just totally out of the question then.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the Israeli Golan Heights. I mean, people will be like, "Well, that was once Syria." Israel took it in 1967.
Yeah,
and they've been occupying it ever since. So, and yeah, I mean, the border of Syria is right there. It's it's right on the other side of the mountains. So you can hear
people go up there and like almost try to watch the war, don't they? Like spectators.
You can, because there's an IDF outpost. There's an Israeli Defense Force outpost up there. I didn't actually go to that, but I mean, you could just hear it though. It's not like, I mean, every once in a while you just hear a couple of gunshots and it's like you just hear like an explosion or something, but it's like super muffled. It's super, super distant though. It's not like it's right there, but you'll hear a bang and you'll be like, oh, that was definitely, but
so there's no chance of getting close to Croc de Chevalier these days.
Unfortunately not, because that's in Syria. So, and I know Paul Crawford went there and he was like, oh, that was amazing,
Well, yeah, I know we talked about he was either just I don't remember whether it was online or on a podcast, but we were just all talking about the sorry state it's been reduced to now. Heavily damaged. But I wonder if that's still ongoing. Is it still being used as a fortress?
Well, to my understanding, where it is right now, it's actually in an area that's controlled by the Bashar al-Assad's Damascus government. So I don't think it's like
that's good.
It's really not taking any more damage then.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's really cleared out a lot of those areas, I think. And
Yeah.
right now, the fighting that we could hear is from the eastern Ghouta region. If you've been listening to like current events, it's basically right now it's Bashar al-Assad fighting this Al Qaeda linked terrorist organization called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and they're like really entrenched in the Ghouta region, and that's what he was fighting. So that's yeah. I mean,
So
it's sorry.
no, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Eric?
No, I was just gonna say that that's really Crack de Chevalier. That would be out of the fighting zone at this point, to my understanding. So
Well, that's good. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it won't get any further damage, because I know that what it was like in the early 2000s. It's been quite a bit degraded since then. So that's
Oh yeah, I remember we were looking at, in fact, talking to Paul Crawford, and he was just really upset about it. I mean, all the damage it had taken, and just the last 10 or 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's not forget this too. You went to Jerusalem itself, right, Eric?
I did. Spent a couple days there, so that was really amazing.
So what did you get to do while you were in Jerusalem?
Well, obviously, the first night I got there, I just was like, well, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to just go walk around the old city.
Nice.
Yeah, because I mean, it's so amazing. Because I mean, Jerusalem itself is actually sprawled out. It's a metropolitan city. It's big. So, but there's an actual old city, the actual Crusader era city that's there.
You can go look at
city. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And so you can. So I walked up, and I went to the Western Wall, and I walked through the Jerusalem markets, and that was amazing. And then I was at the Holy Sepulchre like the next day, and I walked out, and I'm just kind of walking through the markets, and I take a right, and all of a sudden there's just this big Maltese cross on the wall, and I'm like, what? The Hospitallers, and there's like this big monument that says, here is the location of the original Hospital of St. John from the 12th and 13th centuries.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I cried. I was like freaking out. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yep.
Now,
And the Holy Sepulchre itself, like that church, has a ton of Crusader era architecture and stuff. So
Oh yeah, big time.
So
that's a gold mine for that.
So how was that? Let's hear about that.
So walking in, obviously, super Gothic style architecture. It's immediately you're like, I've been to Europe, so I've seen like like Cologne Cathedral and all these like Gothic style cathedral buildings. But I mean, it's definitely, you can tell that it's from that time period. Obviously, it's been renovated here and there, and things have been added on, and it doesn't look the original way it truly did, because ultimately Jerusalem's just been built on top of itself. It's what they call a tell, which is just basically an archaeological site that's just got layers and layers from different time periods. And
right, yeah,
I just thought it was interesting how they kept a lot of things the way the Crusaders had left it, because the Crusaders really renovated that whole building. And when they first got there in 1099, it was not much more than just a shrine, and they really built the church over it. And that's
yeah,
yep.
There's no roof.
Yeah, exactly. It was just an open air, just kind of like, hey, we think this is the location, and then they just built off that. So one thing I think you would really appreciate is that, and I thought it was interesting, because most people, coming in and out, just didn't even pay any attention to it. But I knew it going in, and I was excited to see it. When you get down into the Chapel of St. Helena, there's actually a corridor on the right side that goes down to another chapel, and I can't remember what it's like the Chapel of St. Stephen or something. But it's this really like medieval, Gothic style hallway to the right. And if you look on the walls, everywhere on the wall, there's little mini crosses.
Oh, I've seen those photographs.
Yeah. and people are like, "Oh, that's cool," you know. It's funny because like
Carved by Crusaders,
exactly,
right?
it's Crusade era, and we I was asking some people like what time period they thought that was from, and we don't know. I mean, and I'm interested to know. So if anyone does know, I'd like to know. But I just thought it was interesting because I mean it's all over the walls, you know. So that was crazy to me to think that someone came in here and was like, I made it. I made it to the Holy Land, and it etched a cross in, and but there's hundreds of them all over the wall, and I think it's considered graffiti, but now it's just a work of art. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that whole Holy Sepulchre complex is it. There are just a bunch of different chapels, obviously, and
Hmm.
so and there's a lot of, from what I understand. I mean, I haven't been there yet, but there's interesting little twists to the way things are set up. Like it's like, oh well, this back here is this little area that where they think that the Blessed Virgin wept for a moment or something, or like there's
Yeah.
like a, I think, isn't there like a floor or something? It's like the Virgin's floor or something where they think she was weeping over Christ or something. But
Yeah, the whole area, like you just walk to another room, and it's just like, oh, this is where Jesus was, whipped, and it's like the stone of flagellation or something like that. And then you walk
right,
another 10 feet, and you're like, okay, this is where Christ, did blah blah blah. And I don't know, it's just it's super
yeah,
Catholic, is what it is.
Now
So
I understand that the Holy Sepulchre is still under quite a bit of structural renovation. Is that correct?
yep. Actually, you're totally right. Because when I was there, the whole it's called the Pillars of the Virgins. They were actually renovating that, so we were kind of
I
walking through
mean,
the
it's like
construction.
there's a danger of collapse if certain things aren't done. It's been a while since I read about it, but
Yep, you're right. They're still renovating that area. So
yeah,
it's like on the north side of the church. Yeah, they're doing
they're
some renovation.
actually structurally renovating it. I mean,
Hmm.
I think the
to
Israelis have a
yes.
real, from you can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but the Israelis have a really good archaeological and historical thing going on, which thank God, because when I was at Hagia Sophia is in bad shape. I mean,
Really,
it really is. I mean,
that's sad.
it's such a solid structure that it's it's well preserved in a lot of ways, but you can tell that it's there's some neglect going on there, But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so but yeah, anything else about the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem that stood out to you?
Well, I mean, there was so much. Just obviously the. Oh, actually, yes. There was one thing I thought you might really like. I was actually at the Chapel of Saint Anne's, which I thought was really cool.
Hmm.
And that was a chapel the Crusaders built to commemorate the Mother of Mary, the
Right.
Virgin Mary. And right next to it, there's some ruins, and it says 12th century, crypt or something like that on it. And there was actually another church that Saladin had actually destroyed in 1187. I thought it's like right outside St. Anne's. It's really cool, and it's right by the pools of Bethesda. And what's interesting is that actually on the top, when you walk into the Church of St. Anne's, there is a uh, Arabic seal on the top, and I walked up to the priest in the cathedral, and I was like, "Hey, what is this? Can you explain this to me?" And he looked at that and he goes, "Oh, that's the seal of Saladin." And I'm like, "Well, what?" And he apparently, Saladin actually put that there when he retook Jerusalem in 1187. So I
Hmm.
just thought that was really interesting. Yeah. So there's
Yeah, and I wonder if that's true too. I mean, I know sometimes the local lore can be uh, erroneous, but that would be really cool if it was true.
yeah. I don't know how true that is, but
It, it
that's
may
what the
be. I
priest
mean,
told me. Yeah. So
yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
Um, well, yeah. Well, all I can say is, Scott, you and I are gonna have to head over to
No, absolutely.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just scratched the
It-
surface. I mean, there's
It's gonna
Belvoir
happen.
Castle. you know, which is like Belvoir National Park. I mean, so back to
Belvoir,
your
yeah.
thing, yeah, what you were saying about like with Israel. I mean, yeah, Israel's done a fantastic job of like, you know, preserving these sites and making them into national parks. You know, their archaeological, you know, society is just phenomenal. So
They've got a
kudos to
really.
them.
I know the Israelis have a really robust Crusades scholarship thing going on there too, which is, which, you know, that's great. Obviously, I mean, that's there's a lot. There's increasingly more and more interest in that aspect of the history of that area. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know among the Christian, you know, tourism, I mean, a lot of it is just strictly concerned with, you know, sites and stuff from the life of Christ and biblical and you know, earlier, and it just misses the Crusades altogether.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the evangelical crowd, a lot of those folks, and I'm sure even a lot of the Catholics that go there, you know, just there's not a lot of that's not a particularly remembered thing, I guess.
No, it's not. I mean, they just,
Unfortunately.
I know it. It just kind of like the two things are just so intertwined, yet they just they just kind of go right past each other.
And yeah, too, a lot of Christians don't realize to what extent the interest of the Crusaders in that site is the reason we have all this elaborate stuff built there
Right.
today. I mean, if that had been just held by the Muslims for all that history, there would be nothing at the Holy Sepulchre. I mean, it'd be,
Yeah.
you know, maybe some remnants, but you know, they certainly, one of the stipulations in Islam is that you know, Christians living under Muslim rule aren't allowed to build anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So
I think it's interesting how the people that are the keepers of the door of the Holy Sepulchre are still they're like, you know, it's in generation, you know, whatever, like 45 or something, you know what I mean? But they're like the descendants of the people that Saladin put them in charge of when he conquered the city in 1187. He gave some family the key to the Holy Sepulchre, and they've been opening the door ever since. Is that
Really?
crazy? Yeah, look it up. It's crazy.
That is.
Yep.
except today it's kind of more of a figurative thing. I mean, obviously the Holy Sepulchre is it's controlled by, as I understand it, the Jews kind of the Israeli Jews, they kind of put the different historical sites under the care of their particular religion that they belong to. So like there's various Christian groups that sort of oversee the Holy Sepulchre.
That is true. That is true. But I think it's now.
But there's still this one tradition in existence.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and they still do that to this day, which is just amazing. So. You
know. That is amazing.
Yeah. I walked the outer ramparts of the whole old city. I went through like the Damascus Gate, and I went down by Herod's Gate, and that was the area, to my understanding, where like the on the First Crusade they had actually sieged, and I think was it Raymond who or no, it was not Raymond. It was,
Raymond. No, it was.
He was on the south side.
Godfrey of Bouillon broke in on the north side.
Yes, yeah. So okay, so it was Godfrey, but then Raymond was on the south side, correct?
Yeah, Raymond.
Yeah.
Toulouse was on the south side. Yeah. I'm just looking for a map of Jerusalem here.
And he was actually Raymond. You know, he's so often his role in the First Crusade is kind of unsung, but he actually took a lot of the brunt of the defensive efforts of the Fatimids, like, because that area, like I think they were more prepared to fight at that area, whereas Godfrey, they had done a surprise thing overnight where they'd moved the stuff to it.
I still don't see how they did that.
I don't get. Yeah, that really,
I mean, I wonder, how the hell did they manage to do that?
Are you talking about how they dismantled the
how they
tower
dismantled this huge siege tower and moved it overnight without getting noticed? I mean, it's just. But no, I sorry to interrupt. I guess what you were saying, Stephen, that Raymond's presence at the siege forced the defenders to fight on two fronts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
even though he was unsuccessful, his tower was burned to the ground and so on. I mean, it kept him fighting on two fronts.
yeah, he was an important component of the attack. I'm a big fan of Raymond IV of Toulouse. I think he gets kind of a bad rap because because Bohemond
Yeah.
hated him so much that, and the Gesta Francorum is kind of one of the go-to sources, but which kind of isn't as negative about Raymond as you might think, but I think it's there are some of the sources are like I think Albert of I'll have to reread Albert of Aachen, but I think he's kind of negative on Raymond too, but yeah, this has just been a really interesting discussion, Eric.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you guys want to touch on anything else, or are we kind of nearing the end here?
Any other notable? Did you make it to Bethlehem, Eric?
I did not. I could see Bethlehem. I don't know how to put it, but essentially I was like, yeah, let's go for a walk to Bethlehem because it's actually fairly close.
Oh, it's within walking. Well, it's what,
exactly,
maybe 4 or 5 miles.
Yeah, you could walk to it. I mean, it would take a little bit, but yeah, but the guys I was with, they were like, yeah, you don't want to go there. It's a little dangerous. So
really,
yeah, they were like, unless you want to get like an armored, like a bulletproof bus, like
really?
yeah, that's what they told
Man.
me. So I mean, I took their word. I don't know. So who knows? But
how close can you come to can you walk the walls of the old city during the day? I mean, outside the walls.
Yep, for sure. And you can walk on top of the walls too. It's actually $6.
Really?
Yeah, it's $6.
So you can actually get that close.
Oh yeah.
That is, yeah.
It's kind of a walk yourself, at your own pace tour, and it was just really cool because as you go across, they kind of talk about like, oh, here's where the Ottomans rebuilt this, but then there was certain areas where it was like, this is built on, the Ottomans built on top of the Fatimid and Crusader era fortifications, and so that's just it's just so
well,
crazy.
apparently the Ottomans restored quite a bit that was had been just kind of obliterated in previous centuries.
Jerusalem was left neglected for quite a while.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know what side Saladin attacked from in 1187 when he sieged Jerusalem?
But there was one place that was especially vulnerable.
Yeah,
I know that was in Kingdom of Heaven, but it's true too. I mean, I my memory fails me on exactly what it was, but there was one section of the wall that was particularly weak that he did actually attack.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't surprise me if it would actually be near the Damascus Gate because that's like really flat up there. It makes sense why.
Yeah, Saladin's army was facing the Tower of David and the Damascus Gate.
Okay.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah,
both of those sides are actually fairly flat, and then you go towards like the Temple Mount on the far side, and it's just a steep cliff. And yeah, it's like the Valley of Kidron right there, and it's just and in between the Mount of Olives and the actual city, and it's a super steep. So you can't roll a siege tower up there.
So yeah, his army was facing the Tower of David and Damascus Gate, and it says here that they suffered quite a bit of casualties, fighting the Christians on the wall. So,
do we know where they broke through in 1187? Was it probably like near the Tower of David, or?
I'm trying to.
Let's see here.
I actually don't know, and I feel like I should, but.
Well, okay. Wait a minute. All right. Oh, this is okay. The seed. I'm looking at 1099. Let me do fast forward here.
It looks like it was close to the Mount of Olives.
Really?
There was not a major gate from which the Crusaders could counterattack. I'm just looking at Wikipedia here, so for whatever that's worth. But a lot of times there is, at least like just kind of basic facts you can find on some of these articles here, but
for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at. Not a whole lot on. Wow. No, I was just trying to find the place where they broke through as well, but I don't have it in front of me.
That's something I'd like to know. Because I have no idea.
I know I've seen pictures of it, everything, but it just escapes me right now.
I'd like to ask you, Eric, a little bit just about kind of what it was like dealing, with the Israeli government as a tourist. I mean, how was that? Like, what did you think of the Israeli administration and all that?
They were fantastic. I mean, uh, the one thing that was bad is when I first got to Ben Gurion Airport, I had to stand in the customs line for like over an hour because there was like, you know, probably like 400 people trying to get through, and there was one guy working, and we were like, "What the heck?"
Wow.
But other than that, it was fine. They were really good, and we felt secure. Like it's a safe country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that'll be like, "Oh, no, it's not," but I felt safe. You know, and Jerusalem is really where, if anything's going to happen, it's going to be in Jerusalem. It's and there's guards everywhere. So
Did you kind of get a vibe of some unrest among the Palestinian population, or?
yeah, there's definitely unrest in areas, and there was a day where we were walking near the Temple Mount, and there was people. There was Jews praying, and there was armed guards escorting them, and you could just see that there was just tension in the air. And then there was a day I actually went up on the Temple Mount, and we actually got kind of yelled at by one of the Palestinian Authority officials up there, and that was like kind of a bizarre experience, just because we weren't really expecting it because we weren't really doing anything wrong. But the reason why they yelled at us is because our tour guide was talking about how the Temple Mount, or the location of where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is and where the Dome of the Rock is, he referred to it as the Temple Mount, and a Palestinian official came up and said, "No, this is Al-Aqsa Mosque," and you could just sense there's just tension there. It's I don't know, it was just bizarre.
Well, that's
It's a
pretty
different world.
much what Rand was telling us too after he went. Remember, Stephen?
Yeah.
That it was kind of a tense situation
And
with the authorities.
Can you actually go inside of any of those buildings, like as a non-Muslim? Can you go into the Dome of the Rock or into Al-Aqsa?
I don't think so. And I mean, we walked around the Dome of the Rock, and they were kind of quick to like usher us out. They were like, "Yeah, get out of here," And so I don't think you can. I don't think you can go into either Al-Aqsa or Dome of the Rock. Yeah.
Because when I was in Turkey, you could actually go into a lot of the mosques. Like, you couldn't go into the actual, I guess, like the prayer hall, but you could walk kind of through more of a public type area, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could go into the Blue Mosque. I mean, it's kind of funny because they made the women have to put on veils before they go in there, but so they pass out veils but anyway, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing with the Temple Mount thing kind of, I don't know, like this is a totally different subject, but what is I guess the logic behind the Israelis allowing quote unquote Palestinian authorities to hang out there? I mean, it's like wouldn't that area be better managed by the actual government? I don't know, but
yeah, I mean,
so that would make some people mad, maybe.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because my tour guide kind of hinted at this as well, and it's just interesting because I think it was kind of more of like a goodwill gesture, but
Right.
I mean, none of the Muslim authorities up there actually hold firearms. It's actually the Israeli soldiers are the ones that have the firearms, and they have a presence on the Temple Mount.
Okay.
It's just like the Palestinian Authority has the authority to like move you and usher you away, and they just basically, like, they're wearing like police uniforms, and they just have like walkie talkies. I didn't see anyone carrying firearms. The only people I saw in Israel carrying firearms was like soldiers and border police, and then there was occasionally like just like a guy. I remember I like walked past some random guy at a park, and he was just like, he had like a Glock just sitting on the picnic table, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, like, yeah.
So I guess if one of the Palestinians had tried to jump you or something, the Israeli authorities would have probably intervened. And
oh yeah, they were. I mean, they were,
yeah.
not even 100 feet away from me. They were right in plain sight. So
WW2 Templar says, asked if you went to Accra, and unfortunately, no. Eric was not able to go to Accra on this trip.
Yeah.
Oh, and Patty McGill says, this is easily one of the best YouTube channels in existence. If you have crap for sale, I will buy something. It should have 6 million.
Get back on that idea.
Oh yeah, like a merch thing. Yeah, we need to do
that. Crap for sale.
We do have books for sale, Patty.
Yeah.
I've got a book and Scott's got a book, so you can check those out if you like. And Eric actually has some videos up on his channel of
they're really nothing.
Well, some little clips of some sites and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So people can check that out if they want to.
Yeah. Kind of interesting, but
yeah, feel free to post a link to that, Eric.
Okay. I'll put it under this stream too. Once.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, but yeah. Anyway, Patty, thanks for the compliment, man. We appreciate that. Really glad you like this channel. Okay, cool. I think we've probably done a good conversation here, guys.
Yeah.
Did either of you have anything else to add, or?
Not really.
No.
It was an overwhelming trip, and it was definitely worth going. And yeah, that just. It would be cool to actually see like some real Crusades history on location. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I was just thinking that like what we should do is like organize a real Crusades history group and just get a group of people to go over there together, and we could.
I think so.
Talking about that.
I think so.
Because I'll bet we could set up some kind of group discount thing, like these church groups do. Like we'd be just like a church group, except we'd be a history group.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And also like I think it'd be cool too, because like everything's so close in proximity. You could basically just stay out of like one hotel, and we could just drive and do day trips. And also like just with technology, I mean, we could easily get in touch with like archaeologists working on specific projects,
Yeah.
And I think that'd be so cool to like have like just set up an interview with like Ronnie Ellenblum, who did the excavation of Jacob's Ford, where the Templars got massacred in 1179, and
yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean? Like
absolutely,
you can easily get in touch with these people. It's not actually that hard. And
yeah, one idea I've been kicking around is doing like a Real Crusades history conference, and I'm not sure in which state we would want to do it. I'm kind of thinking maybe somewhere in Texas.
Yeah, that's one we've been. We've been talking about that for quite a while now too.
That could be maybe a first step, like do that, and then after that, maybe organize a trip to the Holy Land. So, so yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna start thinking about that for.
Yeah, and Andrew Holt told me he was in somewhere, but he said he was in Dallas for a conference, and he said he found out I was from Dallas, and we said, we got to get together next time. And I mean, it'd be that kind of thing. I think a lot of stuff happens here.
Dallas would be a good central location where I think, at least obviously people who live way far away wouldn't be able to come, or, I mean, maybe they would, maybe they'd be willing to make the long journey. But I know we have a lot of people in Texas who follow what we're doing here, so that wouldn't be a bad choice.
I'd fly down. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we will. Yeah, we are definitely going to do that. We need to start looking into that. But okay, cool. So, yeah, I guess this is it for now. Eric, thanks so much for talking to us about.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will talk to everyone soon. Now that we're back up with our live stream capability, we'll be doing these regularly again. So,
feels good, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.